Welcome, folks. The Sustainable in the City.
Oh, we got a great show coming for you today. We got lots of folks on the call. We are very excited. Thank you so much for joining us.
We're going to give everybody just a minute to pop in and we'll get started, get our guests going. We're super excited to talk trees today, all about trees here nearing the very end of tree planting season, but there's still a little bit of time. Give everybody just one more second to pop in and then we will get going. All right, I think we've got a good number of folks. We'll go ahead and get started because we have a jam-packed show for you today. I'm super excited to talk with everyone about trees. So first and foremost, welcome everybody to Sustainable in the City. This is a partnership between Zero Waste Nashville. I'm with Jen Harmon with Zero Waste Nashville, and we've got Christina Langoni here from Urban Green Lab. So it's a partnership between our two organizations to talk to you all about things related to waste, reducing waste, and sustainability. So we are your host here today, and today we're talking about rooting for sustainability. Get it? Rooting, trees, you all get it. You're all there. Yeah, so Christina, do you want to talk to us about, let's talk about the chat and how today's going to run.
Let's do it. So we have a chat for y'all today because this is a webinar. We cannot see our lovely audience, but we can chat with you through the chat box. So if you are not familiar with it, please just go on down to the bottom of your Zoom screen. It says chat. And if you see, it does say send to, and it might say host and panelists. We're going to ask you to change it to everyone. We want everyone to see your comments and your questions and your thoughts as we go through. And we will kind of test out this chat with a question to get us started. And since this is rooting for sustainability, we want to know, what is your favorite tree? What is your favorite tree? So put in the chat and let us know what's your favorite tree. I am looking out the window right now in our office to, maybe it's a surfaceberry. I'm not totally sure what it is. I was looking it up right before, but it is blooming and it has little white flowers and it's gorgeous. And I am very, very happy that it is here because it means that spring is right around the corner. We have flowering dogwood, pine oak, willow, redbud. Whoa! Y'all know what trees you like. Going wild. I absolutely love it. Beautiful. Oak, tulip. Jen, what's your favorite tree?
I love those weeping willows.
Oh, come on. How can you not love a weeping willow?
They're magical.
They are. They are. Even when they don't have the leaves, they're still magical. But we love them with the leaves on it because it means spring. So thank you so much, everyone. Keep them coming in. We want to know what your favorite trees are. And now I know that everyone knows how to use the chat. And if you have missed an episode before these, we've had about 24 episodes before this one, you can go ahead and look at our YouTube channel. So Urban Green Lab has a YouTube channel, and all of the previous episodes, including this episode later today, will be uploaded, and you can go back and catch all of those episodes. In the chat, we are going to ask you to ask any questions to our three lovely guests that we have today. We're going to wait until the end of all three presentations before we ask those questions from the chat. So if you are specifically asking for one person to answer it, maybe put that in there, but otherwise we'll just try to field it to the most appropriate person at the end. So again, if you have a question for our lovely guests, please put them in the chat and we will get to them at the end of the presentation, and we will try our best to get to all of them. I think that is everything that we have to do for housekeeping. So let's get started.
All right, let's get started. So I'm just going to introduce all of our guests and then we're going to jump into each one. So we've got Jennifer Smith here. She is with Meitra Nashville. She's the horticulturist for Meitra Nashville at Meitra Water Services. We have Meg Morgan, who is the campaign manager at the Cumberland River Compact for Root Nashville. And we have Meitra Aycock, who is our one of our many Metro Beautification commissioners, and she's going to talk about the Metro Beautification Commission and how they support trees. But we're going to start off with Jennifer Smith. And so Jennifer, to start with you, what does it mean to be the Meitra Nashville horticulturist? And what drew you specifically to working with trees?
Well, I think my interest in trees started a long time ago. My parents named me Jennifer Pine. It's my middle name. So it was set early in my life. I remember my birthday is in spring, and all I wanted was tulips. I just wanted tulips. And they planted a tulip poplar. And I think it kind of confused me a little bit. It got me focused on trees. Went on, and as a teenager, I volunteered at Cheekwood working in the gardens, and that was a lot of fun. So I got the degree in horticulture and landscape design at the University of Tennessee. And I've been mostly in public horticulture my whole career, botanic gardens, but I was the state executive director of the Tennessee Urban Forestry Council for about 13 or so years. And in that time, I was able to work with all the cities across the state in building their urban forestry programs to capacity. And along the way, I learned a lot, and I was able to bring those lessons to Nashville when I became the horticulturist, and mostly have been working with street trees throughout the years. But I'm fascinated with trees. I like that they provide shade. And from the landscape point of view, they certainly do create a sense of place, and they give kind of a structure to the built environment. So they kind of soften up the built environment and bring scale to our buildings. So that was how I got here, I guess. And what was your other question?
Oh yeah, what does it mean to be the Metro Nashville horticulturist?
On any given day, it could mean anything. One of my honors is I coordinate the Metro Tree Advisory Committee, and they are a wonderful, eclectic group of people in the city. Some of them work for the city, volunteers, tree experts, and then we have others that are not so expert, but they're enthusiasts. And they've really been working for years on our urban forestry program here in Nashville. But yeah, again, I work a lot with street tree issues and how to have a sustainable sidewalk with all the things you need in a sidewalk, utilities, but we want trees. And I also work with all our nonprofit agencies that working towards sustainable trees in Nashville. It's a wonderful job. I feel blessed.
I love the predestined nature of your name as well to working with trees. So now, as a horticulturist, you're not the only Metro employee that is working directly with trees and planting trees in Nashville. So why is tree planting important for the city and its long-term sustainability?
Well, trees just provide us so many benefits. And so in Nashville, our urban forestry effort is just really gaining momentum. And we have now 3 people in Metro Water under stormwater, because obviously trees help mitigate stormwater and very important to prevent flooding. In our codes department, we have 2 urban foresters, and they enforce our tree code. And, we're growing, and we need those codes enforced, and so we don't lose our tree canopy. And then in the planning department, these are all Metro departments, they help write our tree ordinance, tree codes, and our downtown code. And then in parks, they've been at it longer than anybody. They've planted trees for years, not only in the parks, but in downtown Nashville. So we're grateful for what they've done over many years. I'll tell you a little funny. When I volunteered at Cheekwood, I worked under a young horticulturist then, Randall Lance, and got the same degree he did. And now he has been for a long time the horticulturist for Metro Parks. So I'm working with them again in a different format, but tree worlds kind of connect, I think.
All right. I do love that. All right, our next question is, there are a lot of organizations, and you've already mentioned some of them here in Nashville, that work to plant trees and support Nashville's tree canopy. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about those different organizations, what they all do, and how you and Metro facilitate the work of all those different tree organizations.
Right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and go back a few. So that's my information there if you want to grab that. But we have many partners in our efforts to sustain our urban forest, and we're very fortunate in that capacity. The Metro Tree Advisory Committee, again, as I noted earlier, that's a committee that helps advise and work with the city. They got started in 1984, so they've been working a long time, and their mission is to promote tree planting and preservation throughout our city, as well as the the Root Nashville campaign, which Meg will be talking about later, but their goal is to plant 500,000 trees by 2050. So you can see that we're all needed to help with that. So partners are very, very important to our efforts. And she will tell you a little bit more, but they're housed in our nonprofit partner, the Cumberland River Compact, which has been doing great things in our city. Well, it's not wanting to advance.
There you go.
Oh, no. Oops, now it does. Okay, so our partners, we have the Tree Foundation that have been working for us since 1986, and they work to, again, help plant trees. They have a lot of different programs. They have the Reliefing Day, which is always the Saturday before Thanksgiving that they've been doing for years in conjunction with our Nashville Electric Service. But they seem to be planting trees every weekend now. They host the Big Old Tree Contest, which is a contest to note the largest trees in each species in our county. And they have the Green Shirt program, and that's really important. So much of our planting by our partners is done by volunteers. And it was noted the need to have more oversight when the, what I call done in a day volunteers come. So a Green Shirt program was established. It's about 2 or 3 years old now, and training will continue. But if you'd like to become a Green Shirt, but you get this really cool t-shirt, of course, but you're trained up to provide oversight to a group or two of volunteers on those tree planting events. And it really has helped the quality of our tree planting, which is very important. The Tree Conservation Corps, they have been around since 2015 and really doing some good work. They have planted trees on Shelby Avenue and into the Shelby Park, working on a lot of issues with land conservation and helping to write new tree ordinances. And then they have the very popular tree cell, and you can go on their website, and they have so many trees of all kinds, flowering, fruiting, evergreens, deciduous, and it's the greatest service. They drop them at your house, and you can pay an upcharge to have them plant it, or you can plant it yourself as a family event. So we really appreciate the work they're doing. And then statewide, we have a partner in the Tennessee Environmental Council, and they were established in 1970. So they've been working in the environmental world for a long time, and they've really gotten into trees, and they have the Tennessee Tree Day, which this year will be March 19th. And the goal is to have 1 million native trees planted. Now, these are seedlings by 2025. And so this year, their goal is to plant 75,000 seedlings in 95 counties. And I think it's interesting that they're also working with counties that are tandem to Tennessee because of the water, the flow, the watersheds that go through Tennessee. They want them, of course, to have the trees planted there to help protect our water resources that way. And then we have our Metro Beautification commissioners, and I work a lot with them on tree planting. Of course, their main focus is on litter prevention. They have cleanup days throughout their district. Each Metro Council has a beautification commissioner. And Meitra will be on later to talk a little bit about what she does. But they're a great group of people that are so dedicated to our community, and I really enjoy working with them. and have worked with him on a lot of tree planting projects in their different districts. So just a few pictures here. You see we have volunteers of all sizes. We do tree planting demonstrations. We encourage people to get involved. We have tree groups, schools come out. The top left here was a planting after the tornado. The Tree Foundation planted trees in honor of those that the two that were killed during the tornado. And in the middle photo, you can see it can be a family affair. You can come just with your family. On the bottom left, you see someone in a green shirt. Those are those nice green shirts. If you become a green shirt, you'll get one of those. But you can see in the background, there's a tarp over that house. And so this is right where the tornado came through. And in the middle, the bottom, that's Reliefing Day with the mayor. And that's every year they host it in different sections of the city. And then on the bottom right, you can see many volunteers that came out many days to plant trees along Shelby Avenue and into the park. And I think their tree count is over 600 now for that project. So it's pretty amazing what people can do. Now, another group that gets involved are corporate or businesses. So they want to have a project where they come out as a group and plant. And I've worked through the Tree Foundation with them on these plantings, and it's very rewarding, very rewarding. It's kind of nice for them to get out of their normal habitat or where they work. And they just seem to really enjoy that they're doing something for the community. And we get a lot of trees planted as well. So also, we do a lot of outreach. So just recently, just past weekend, we gave away thousands of tree seedlings at the Lawn and Garden Show. And then next week, we're going to have our annual Arbor Day ceremony, which is always a nice tradition. The mayor is there. And one of the awards that's given out, the recognition awards, is our Tree City USA award. And so we've been a Tree City USA for 25 years. And that means that we celebrate Arbor Day. We spend a certain amount per capita on trees. We have a tree advisory committee, our tree board. And you may have seen signs across this county about the Tree City signs. And each year we have put a new sticker on it as we keep getting the designation each year. But that's fun, and the mayor's there to read the proclamation. We've given trees out at farmers markets, different groups. Wherever the people are, we will find them. Another program that we have that's really helped our tree program is the Meitra Tool Share program. So groups, volunteer groups, will check these out. They're free. They get a lot of shovels and mattocks, things to use to plant trees. And it gets a lot of use. So this is a good program to note that if you're hosting a public community tree planting, that there's a resource for these tools. Now, another program that's in Nashville, it's actually statewide, it's the Certified Arboretum program that's presented by the Tennessee Urban Forestry Council. And we have several of these arboretums in our district, in our Davidson County. And arboretums are our outdoor education classroom, if you will. And I just wanted to note that this project going on Shelby Avenue and into Shelby Park, the Tree Conservation Corps is working towards designation as a certified arboretum. And the first level goes at 60, and then it goes 60, 90, 120. So depending on how many trees you have, they're labeled, that's your level. And the fun thing about this is a lot of people start at 60 and they really work to get different species planted so they can get to the next level. It's a lot of pride in that. And it's a lot of fun. So Metro has funds for tree planting and for citizens to use. And this is really important to note so that perhaps you would like to have a project in your neighborhood, maybe at the library or school. But the Metro Tree Bank funds this is to be trees planted on public property. And these funds come from developers who are not able to meet their tree planting requirements. So they pay into this tree bank. And again, it's for public property like the right of ways, which is on the edge of the roads, schools, parks, greenways, and libraries. And that's become very popular. And again, we work with different partners. Perhaps the Beautification Commissioner will team up with another person, maybe a member of the Tree Advisory Committee, and work on projects in their district. The new Canopy funding, this is for funding that we just received from Metro Council for private property. And we'll be working with a nonprofit partner. And this organization will then grant planting funds for private property. So we're having public property and private property means to plant. And again, we want to encourage everyone to take advantage of these funds. We went for many years with no funds. So this is kind of fun to have funds, finally. This is just an example or two of the tree bank funds. This was put to use during this growing season. This is an area of Douglas near 12 South. And
10th Avenue. It's 10th Avenue South.
And so the neighborhood came together and wanted this project. A member of the Tree Advisory Committee put it together and worked with the Beautification Commissioner. So that's just one example. And here's an example of a tree bank planting at a school. So we were able to get a lot of trees in the ground through these funds. Just to note, unfortunately, that we are also going to be losing a lot of, all of our ash trees, native ash trees, unless they're treated in the next couple of years, maybe by 2026. And it'll be interesting this growing season to see how many of the ash trees will just not put out leaves this year. But this is an epidemic, and it's we do programs on how you can know about what you need to do. It is very important to know, to have a plan first, just even know if you have an ash tree, and then making your management plan. The reason why that's important is that these trees can get very brittle and they can snap. It's called the ash snap. So you need to know if you have an ash tree or your neighbor has an ash tree. And Metro is working as well on their management plan for these trees and removal. So that's going to be a big issue. It is a big issue for Metro. And this growing season is going to be interesting. And so I just want to encourage everyone to join us and plant trees in Nashville. I think that the time is right. We have so many good things in place. And like in Root Nashville that we'll be talking next, but just a quote from the founder of Arbor Day, J. Sterling Morton: "The cultivation of trees is the cultivation of the good, the beautiful, and the ennobling in man." Thank you, and I'll be here to answer any questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was a fabulous overview of all the different ways that Metro intersects and with tree plantings and the projects and funding that potentially can be available for that. And a great transition to our next speaker, Meg, to talk about Root Nashville. So before we jump into, I know you have a presentation as well, but before we jump into it, can you just tell us a little bit and tell our audience about yourself and how you got into working with trees?
Absolutely. And thank you, Jen and Christina, for putting this all together. And thank you, Jennifer, for kind of setting it up here. Most of my background is actually in communications and in nonprofit management. So I don't have a background in trees necessarily, but I've always loved the outdoors and being in nature. And professionally, I've always felt that cross-sector collaboration is the way to really get stuff done that is meaningful and long-lasting. And so the fact that Root Nashville is kind of set up as a partnership and it has this very big, important goal for sustainability in our city, like Jennifer, feel blessed to have a really cool job.
That's incredible. I do love that it takes all different kinds of backgrounds to be involved in these types of things to make sure that they happen and they happen well. So all those skills are really important. So I'm excited to hear what you have to talk about Root Nashville. We'll let you jump into your presentation.
Yeah, definitely. So I am really looking forward to talking with you all about the Root Nashville campaign and ways that you can get involved. But I want to start with a really sobering, unfortunate fact, and that is that as a city, we are losing trees. We are losing thousands of trees every year to development and to growth. We're losing trees to storms like tornadoes and derechos. We have an aging tree canopy in Nashville. Trees live a long time, but not forever, and many of our trees are getting older. So every year we are losing thousands of trees. And then as Jennifer mentioned, we also have this pesky little beetle, the emerald ash borer, that is here in Nashville. And it's estimated that it's going to kill all of our native ash trees, which is an estimated kind of 5% of our canopy. So that alone is thousands and thousands of trees, tens of thousands. So when you put all of these together, we really are losing many trees as a city. And this is something that we should really, really care about because trees provide us with so many different kinds of multi-layered benefits in so many different categories. And I want to start by talking about the different benefits of trees to ourselves as people and our own public health. So this is a map of Davidson County on the left, and this is average surface daytime temperature map. So this is something that shows what's called the urban heat island effect. And so you can see downtown Nashville, redder means hotter. You can see that this is much hotter than the surrounding areas that are a little bit kind of bluer and cooler in temperature. And that's because the more impervious surfaces you have, so these are things like concrete, the hardscapes, things that can't absorb rainwater when it falls, these areas are much hotter than the surrounding areas that have more trees and vegetation. And this really this really impacts our own health as people because heat-related illnesses are a really serious issue. Heat-related illnesses actually kill more people than any other natural disaster combined. So things like floods and tornadoes, that kind of thing. Heat-related illnesses are kind of called the silent killer because it's not as, maybe doesn't get as much attention about how dangerous they can be. So the fact that trees cool us down by providing shade and really, keeping it cooler at a very local level impacts our own health because of it lowers the temperature, makes it cooler. Of course, trees also provide us with clean air to breathe. So thank you, trees, for that. No big deal, right? Just something small and minor. And it's actually, the studies show that when you have more trees and higher density of canopy, it actually decreases the risk of asthma and it decreases the hospitalizations due to asthma. So planting trees in areas that have higher rates of asthma can help actually reduce the risk there in the hospitalizations. So clean air, yay, good thing. Trees also really help as people, again, this is all talking about our own public health, really help us with our own mental health. It's shown that you really reduce stress, helps lower your blood pressure, and even the ability to see a tree out a window is shown to have really calming benefits. So you don't even have to be outside to enjoy the mental health benefits of trees and the many things that they provide. Of course, also trees are a really important natural climate solution. It is absolutely not the only thing that we need to do in order to mitigate climate change, but it is absolutely a strategy that can help build a more resilient city. This is because they, can slow down rainwater as it falls, soak up extra water. It is expected that in Middle Tennessee, we are going to experience more extreme rainfall events as the climate continues to change. So trees can really help with that. They can lower temperatures. And of course, they sequester and they hold carbon. So they can really be an important strategy in mitigating climate change. Related to that, they also help us use less energy in the first place. So this is good for your individual, household budget because you won't have to spend as much if you've got trees planted in the right place. You won't have to spend as much on air conditioning because trees can help shade your home, keep it cooler. And if it's a deciduous tree, once the leaves fall, now the sun can actually come through those branches and it can actually help keep your house warmer in the winter. So that benefit goes both ways depending on the season. And again, we talked about, clean air and how that benefits ourselves, but it's also so important for water quality that we have a really strong, healthy tree canopy. So this is a close-up of a tool called iCreek that is provided by the Cumberland River Compact. You can go to this tool and find your own watershed, see where your water is draining, and see whether those waterways are healthy or unhealthy. And it is absolutely the case here in Nashville, but this is a trend that is, across the country and the world, that the areas that have higher density of trees, have higher tree canopy, have healthier, cleaner waterways. And you can even see that on this one example here. You can kind of see on this kind of bottom southernmost kind of corner here, there's more trees here. You see more blue waterways, which means more healthy waterways. It's kind of the legend for that. This area kind of further up north that doesn't have as much trees has more unhealthy streams. So in addition to the ways that, trees and public health are intertwined, absolutely we need healthy trees in order to have clean waterways as well. It's all tied together. But really the best part about all these benefits is that trees don't just do one of these things at any given point in time. Trees are providing us with all of these different benefits all the time. And this is even just barely scratching the surface of all the things that they can provide. This is just kind of a greatest hits of the different benefits of trees. And they're doing these things all the time. We don't have to pick and choose. But remember, we're losing trees. This is a picture from after the tornado. This was a tree that had to be, almost all of it had been damaged, and these other pieces had to be chopped off. But fortunately, you can already see some replanting efforts going on there. So because of the fact that we're losing so many trees, and yet they give us so many different benefits, this is why the Root Nashville campaign was launched. So what is Root Nashville? This is a partnership. It's a public-private partnership led by two entities, a nonprofit, the Cumberland River Compact, so that's where I work, and Meitra Nashville. So Root Nashville is very much an initiative that the city is behind as well. And this campaign has this very big, ambitious goal of planting 500,000 trees in Nashville by 2050. This is a goal to restore our canopy and to get us back what has been lost and get us to a number and a percentage of canopy coverage that we need in order to have a healthy population. So we talked about this a little bit with the benefits, but just to kind of say a little bit more about the leaders of the Root Nashville campaign and why there's a lot of water in this, right? Like, wait, I thought we were talking about trees. And that is, again, just because healthy waterways absolutely require a healthy tree canopy. That helps with soil erosion as well. It helps filter our stormwater before it even enters the waterways. There's just so many different kinds of things trees can do to protect our water. And that is why the Cumberland River Compact is the operational lead for the Root Nashville campaign. But it's also why we work really closely with Metro Water Services. The urban forestry hub for the city is located within Metro Water, and that's because of all these preventative benefits that trees provide in terms of our water quality. So we're trying to plant 500,000 trees to restore all these, trees that are being lost and to restore all these benefits that trees provide us. But there's some key outcomes that we're looking for as well through the planting of all of these trees. And the first and foremost of those being the most important is creating an equitable canopy distribution. If you think about the different corners of Nashville, some of them are much more kind of well treed than other areas. And we look to make that more equitable and even. Mitigating the effects of childhood asthma. We talked about how trees can really help prevent attacks and prevent hospitalizations of asthma. Reducing that urban heat island effect, improving water quality, and then also minimizing the impact of the emerald ash borer. So we looked at all of those different outcomes that we wanted to achieve and kind of looked at the data. Where are the most hospitalizations due to asthma occurring? Where are there the most impaired streams that can be fixed? Where is there less tree cover than in other areas? And that is kind of put all those data together on one big map and kind of showed that these are the areas in Nashville where trees can really make the most impact and difference. The colors don't mean anything except to just differentiate one from the other, but we've got Madison up here in the far north, North Nashville in blue, this area just above downtown, and South Nashville, this area just south of downtown. So this is where we're really looking to focus our tree planting efforts. So we've got this big goal, 500,000 trees. We've got all these things that we're trying to do, but what is it that we want to get out of this at the end? I just wanted to share this vision statement with you. And our vision is to build a tree canopy for Nashville that creates a more equitable, healthy, and climate resilient neighborhoods. That's the end goal. That's what we're looking for. And I won't get into this here because Jennifer spoke so well to this already. But fortunately, we are not alone in the leads of the Root Nashville campaign, the Cumberland River Compact in Metro Nashville. We are not alone in trying to hit this big goal of 500,000 trees. So that helps me sleep at night. And I'm so glad, everyone should be so glad that we do have so many different organizations working towards this goal in different ways. There's nonprofit partners, there's government partners, and all trees, no matter who plants them, can count towards this goal. So we're really glad that Nashville is fortunate to have all these groups working towards this goal. You can find information about each one of the organizations or departments listed here on the Root Nashville website if you're interested, and kind of see all the different specialties of each one of these different groups. There's a tree planters page on the website if you're interested. And so all the trees that all of these groups are planting and that we're planting through the Cumberland River Compact, that Metro Water Services is planting, they can all count towards this goal. And this is a snapshot that I took just a little bit earlier today of where we are. We're at just a little over 21,000 trees as a city, and that's since October 2018. So we are well on our way. Still a lot more to go, but we are well on our way. And even if you are an individual who has planted trees on your own since October 2018, or if you go to the nursery and plant one within the next few weeks while we're still in planting season, you can count that tree towards the Root Nashville goal through this tool. This is also available on the Root Nashville website. This is called Tree Plotter. And then you can see a little dot in your neighborhood, and you know that that count will go up 21,328 after you add your tree. So we do encourage you to add your trees here if you haven't already. Be part of the movement.
And hey, Meg, I think it's worth pointing out that even if you planted a tree back in 2018, you can, on your own, you can take credit for it now, because I did so over the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for mentioning that. And we definitely encourage you to do so. There's a category on Tree Plotter called Awesome Individual. And if you go ahead and you plant a tree on your own, you get to count that in the category of Awesome Individual, because you are an awesome individual if you are planting trees. So thank you for mentioning that. In terms of what trees do count and what trees, we need to wait a little bit longer in order to count. Trees that are 1-inch caliper in size, and that is about the size of the trees of our team pictured here. 1-inch caliper, that means trees that are about 1 inch in diameter at about shoulder height. So they're going to be pretty big trees already. Any tree that size can count towards the goal right away. If you've planted a smaller tree, that can still count towards the goal. We just will not count it until it's survived in the ground for that first year. The reason for that is we could plant 500,000 trees, within the next few weeks if we wanted to, if we planted all seedlings or smaller trees. But we've really found that this is the sweet spot of survivability. And so that's why we plant trees that are a little bit bigger. It's more likely that they're going to live into their full maturity to provide us with all of those different benefits. So I'll kind of leave us off with this maybe call to action here, and that is that we are currently looking for more neighborhood planting captains. This is a program where you can bring trees to your own neighborhood, big free trees that are about the size of what was pictured here, to your own neighborhood. So be a neighborhood hero, have all your people in your neighborhood love you by providing the outreach that free trees are available. So how this works is you apply to be a captain on the website, and if you're accepted, you get a certain number of trees for your neighborhood, and then you tell your neighbors that these trees are available and encourage them to sign up. You don't need to do any actually of the digging or delivery or any of that. The Cumberland River Compact team handles that part of it, but wanted to just quickly mention that we are looking for more captains. And where you can go to learn more is the Root Nashville website, which is rootnashville.org. And also wanted to share email addresses here in case anyone would like to reach out, but I will go ahead and pause there and stop sharing.
That was absolutely fabulous. So much wonderful information. Before we jump to our next speaker, I did want to just ask maybe one, maybe two questions to just dive a little bit deeper on some of the topics that you talked about. Specifically, we'll start with the equitability piece of the Root Nashville campaign, because it's just so important to look at sustainability through that lens. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the importance of equitability as it relates to Nashville's tree canopy, and how you're exactly incorporating that equitability piece into the new Nashville campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is one of the, if maybe one of the most, if not the most important kind of component of the Root Nashville campaign, because trees are not distributed equitably across our city. If you think about the tree difference in areas like Belmead compared to somewhere like North Nashville, just north of downtown, they look totally different in terms of mature trees and tree canopy in general. And it's true in Nashville and in most urban areas that, unfortunately, if you looked at a map of income and of race, and then you looked at a map of tree canopy cover, these are parallel. So areas that are wealthier and whiter have more tree canopy. And this is absolutely the case for Nashville as well. But again, trees provide so many of these benefits, right? So we want to make sure that this is mitigated and that we can fix this, because it's also true that the effects of climate change are going to disproportionately greater affect vulnerable people and people of color. So this is why we're looking to really focus trees in these certain areas through these impact areas and others. And an example of, you know, how we're doing this, Metro Water Services actually completed some really cool street tree plantings in these impact areas within this planting season. It's going to be phased out over the next 5 or 6 planting seasons, getting more and more trees kind of concentrated in these areas. But yeah, the reason is because it's not distributed equitably right now, and trees provide so many different benefits. And the fact that, you know, as our climate changes, these areas are going to get hit even harder than others.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, that was just one piece I wanted to touch a little bit more on. It's so important. And it's just so important to be considered with all the things that we talk about on sustainable in the city. And I do have other questions for everyone that I'd love to talk to, but we are going to go ahead and jump to our next speaker, Meitra. So we have some time to talk about the Metro Beautification Commission. So Meitra, if you could tell us a little bit about what is the Metro Beautification Commission, what does it mean to be a commissioner, and then why did you get involved with Metro Beautification Commission and become a commissioner?
Well, thank you, Jen. You know what? Let me start with how I got involved, because, you know, my path, unfortunately, my middle name is Elizabeth. So there wasn't anything that drove me to do this. I'm really irritated at my parents now that they didn't name me something much more grand. But I came to this through community engagement. So I would say, you know, well, in my 40s was the first time I had an opportunity to rally as part of a community, as our neighborhood was advocating for the conservation overlay, the Waverly Belmont conservation overlay, and had the incredible experience to be a block captain and to, you know, go door to door and talk to my neighbors and hear what my neighbors thought was important, which was preservation of the beauty of our neighborhood. And that really awakened in me an interest in all things related to my community and in paying, you know, respect and providing what I could to keep it a beautiful place to live. I was approached by our council person, Colby Sledge, and asked to be a beautification commissioner. Frankly, I had no idea, and Colby didn't do the best of jobs probably in explaining to me what my responsibilities would be. But when I got involved, it became clear. So as a beautification commissioner, and I'd say every council district has a beautification commissioner. If you go to Nashville, .gov, you can look up who your beautification commissioner is. It has their contact information. I can tell you as a commissioner, I would be thrilled if someone in my district said, hey, I need help. I need help. And what do we do? So we're really here to, weave together our community, the community we serve, that district, with the many, many government resources that, these fine ladies have outlined today, but frankly, that exist even beyond, the tree world. So, we care about anything to do with cleanliness of our community. So, we typically, the beautification commissioners involved in organizing various alley cleanups or street cleanups within, our communities. Tree plantings is obviously very important. Jennifer alluded to, a beautification commissioner working with someone from the tree conservation group, and that I think I was that example where we were able to, source and plant 177 trees in 12 South using the tree bank. And that was, a wonderful experience, and one that, my grandchildren and beyond will enjoy. We do things like planting, distributing, and helping to plant daffodil bulbs every fall. That's a wonderful program. And, daffodils, yes, they tell us spring is here, but, they're the gift that keeps giving and multiplying year after year. So really anything that is, focused on clean and attractive, beautiful community is what beautification commissioners spend our time doing, and really can be a helpful resource for you guys, the public, right? We've gotten a lot better, I would say, as a city. The Hub Nashville has been really helpful in helping people navigate our government, but still it's complex. So we're here to help you navigate. That's it.
Sorry, I was still muted. So you touched on this a little bit about the trees. So can you talk a little bit more specifically about your work with helping your community get some of those tree plantings, and what can our audience, especially, how can they reach out to the Beautification Commission? How can they use the Beautification Commission as a resource to kind of help them get started, in addition to these other resources we've talked about today? And why, I'm throwing something else in there. And why would it be important to reach out to your beautification commissioner if you are doing a tree planting project?
Well, we can help bring volunteers to your endeavor. So, I think sometimes people might be a bit reticent to dive into a major tree planting initiative if they're thinking, oh, that's a lot of hole digging right there. And so we can help to get volunteers and pull all the resources that are available so that you don't have to figure out on your own, how do I navigate these many, many organizations to get us to the place we want to be. The example of what we did in 12 South. So I worked with a lady, Carol Ashworth, who I think a lot of people who deal with trees know Carol, are a fan of Carol's. I certainly am. And, we work together, and there's a lot of not just the vision of what kind of trees should we plant and where should we plant them, but also you got to notify, even if it's in the right of way, it's to your benefit to notify the neighbors where, in the right of way, you'll be planting trees. Believe it or not, when we went through our project here in 12 South, we actually had somebody who said, oh no, please don't plant any trees in the right of way near me. I hate trees. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never heard of a person who would say, I hate trees. And sure enough, you look and like, there's not a single tree anywhere on that lot. And, you know, although it is in the right of way and technically not that homeowner's right to say what can and can't go there, we wanted to make sure we were planting trees in places where neighbors would be appreciative and happy to have them, and to not potentially put them in peril. So you've got to, you know, hit the street and send out flyers, and you've got to, you know, call the utilities, and you've got to, you know, you've got to coordinate the activities to make them happen. So Beautification Commissioner is a great resource to help with that.
That's incredible. That's just, it's so helpful and useful for those folks. I mean, I know I'm embarrassed to say I've never planted a tree. I'm going to have to get on that. It's a New Year's resolution this year. But how would you,
green shirt,
it's going to have to happen. But how getting started is, you know, it can feel a little overwhelming when you start thinking about all those logistics, and they are really important. I'm so glad you brought up the right of way and just people's preferences. It's very sad to hear someone that doesn't like trees, but it's important to make sure that, you know, those things are addressed so that you don't end up with a tree, as you said, in peril. And the Beautification Commission, I will say they're all volunteers as well, and do this out of the goodness of their hearts to help the community. So they're a great resource and they want to be there to help. So thank you, Meitra.
I should have said, Jen, it's a 3-year term, so you're not making a commitment for life. And the other commissioners, we meet monthly. And I think, you know, that the great thing is that through that collective, lots of wonderful ideas, information sharing. Again, our city resources are tremendous in being, you know, willing to educate us and guide us. So it's a great experience.
That's awesome. Well, these are 3 incredible experts in all things trees that we have here today. And so I don't want to hold up any more time before we get to what I thought I saw was a lot of questions in our chat. So I'm going to throw it back over to you, Christina, and these will just lob them to each of you, whoever they might need to go to.
Yes, definitely. Thank you all so much. This was so informative and interesting. And Jen, I haven't planted a tree either, so maybe that's something that we do together soon. We're making moves, guys. All right, so we are going to do our best to get through all of these amazing questions. I apologize if I missed anybody's. I think I got everyone. If your question is not answered in this Q&A section and it is a burning question, please feel free to email us and we will get you that answer or connect you to whomever that makes sense to answer you. So we're going to hop right in. So these first couple of questions came while Jennifer was talking. So Rachel was asking, does Nashville have a no net loss policy or something similar regarding to our trees and canopies? And similarly, Caitlin asked, is Metro or TDEC pushing for healthy tree canopy to be included in the construction requirements for development or pushing to include these in LEED? So do we have a no net loss policy, and is there any other kind of ordinances that we should know about maybe with new construction?
Well, we do have our tree ordinance that has certain tree density units that are required to be planted back. And in our residential areas, let's say that a house was torn down or a brand new house was built. Right now, we have it that there's one tree that's at least 2-inch in caliber every 30 feet. And in the downtown code, it's every 50 feet. So we're working to strengthen all of those. And you asked a TDEC question. They're not, they're not regulatory here. The Nashville, Metro Nashville regulates the ordinance here, not state. But we do work with all agencies across, stormwater, for example.
So partner, but they're not setting it. Wonderful. And just a quick question about that 10th Avenue South planting that you were doing. Robert said, they looked like they were under power lines, and they were just curious if you take that into consideration. Are they like kind of shorter trees? Some head nods.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We planted mostly crepe myrtles there.
Well, there's a lot of standard red buds. And so anytime you plant in the right of way, it has to go through me because I work in the right of way. That's my realm, I guess. And so we look for underground utilities, overhead utilities. I approve the species, and then someone in our Department of Transportation, who's our engineer, looks to make sure that you're not planting a tree that's going to create a sight line. So someone pulling out of their driveway can't see a car coming because there's a tree there. So all those things are taken into consideration. And anytime when you don't have a utility line at all, we encourage canopy tree. It's very important.
Wonderful. Thank you for that context. Christy asked us, where can we advocate for trees to be planted in a particular public area?
Well, I'm a good contact for that. I don't necessarily take care of each, but I would know that might be a project that this group would be interested in, because we're always looking for planting places. You would think that would be the easiest part, but Meg, you could probably say it's one of our most challenging parts.
Well, we are always looking for sites, and I'm really grateful for this question because you can actually, through Hub Nashville, submit your ideas for areas that you want to be planted with trees. We cannot guarantee that all of these areas, will be perfectly suited or will work out for tree planting. But if you go to Hub Nashville, there's a trees category, and then there's an answer for ideas, submitting your ideas. And this gets funneled through to all of the different tree planting organizations that are in Nashville. So if you know of a beautiful, ripe for trees planting strip and you want to see street trees, if you know of a school you drive by every day and it bothers you, I know I've submitted a couple ideas because I'm like, I know, we want to get trees here. So for public property in particular, would really encourage people to submit their planting ideas through Hub Nashville.
Wonderful. Wow, we're learning a lot this episode. I'm loving it. So kind of similarly, Pat was asking, is there a central place where we can get seedling distributions by different entities listed? So basically places that we can find where to get seedlings.
Well, we have a relationship with the Sheriff's Office, and they have started a nursery where they grow seedlings, and they will distribute them to different groups that are out there, like the Boy Scouts and others wanting to do tree planting. Last weekend, again, we gave away thousands of tree seedlings at the Lawn and Garden Show, and the Tennessee Environmental Council has their big seedling day coming up that we talked about earlier. That's a statewide initiative.
Wonderful.
A lot of those trees do get planted in Davidson County.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And then Jennifer, this was a specific question for you from Matthew. Can you remind us of the location and time of the Arbor Day event? So I believe you talked about an Arbor Day event. So
yes, I can do that. So again, every year we have an annual Arbor Day celebration with the mayor, and it will be this year, next Tuesday, March 15th at 11:00 a.m. at the East Park Community Center. And it is a nice time. It's a good moment that all these people come together from different walks of life and celebrate trees.
Wonderful. And do you need to sign up for that, or can you kind of just show up?
You can show up.
Great. Wonderful. Awesome. So Jennifer, you might be able to answer some of these questions too, but these were kind of funneled in while Meg was talking. So while you were talking about asthma and other allergy kind of cases, Caitlin was wondering, is there a focus on planting both male and female tree species? Because she believes that male species release the pollen, but there are not enough female species to collect it, which is having a negative effect on allergies. So do you have any information about that?
That is a very knowledgeable question.
Right?
So
Yes.
knowledgeable question asker. Wow. Short answer is we plant a mix. And more broadly speaking, we really focus on planting native species whenever possible because they provide, even more, ecosystem services benefits and benefits to wildlife and habitat. If you remember, learning about the food pyramids or food webs, when you were maybe in elementary school or middle school, you remember the producers are always kind of at the bottom of that web, and that's what trees are, right? They're really like very literally the foundation of our urban ecosystem. So short answer is yes, we plant a mix, and we always need to communicate with nurseries about exactly what we're getting, try to plant native species as much as possible.
Knowledgeable question, knowledgeable answer. This was actually a very simple question, but I really enjoyed this one. Are bushes as helpful as trees?
All plants are good, I think. Maybe not invasive ones, and non-native ones can maybe not be as good as native. But in terms of the benefits of preventing stormwater runoff and capturing carbon, the bigger the better. So that's why Jennifer was saying, if you have room to plant a tree and you don't have conflicts of power lines or anything else you need to worry about, we always recommend going with a nice big canopy tree where you can. Bushes, any kind of plant that is going to soak up water, that is going to help keep things cool. So if the option is no plant or a bush, go for the bush. But if the options are a bush or tree, we say go tree and go big.
Tree or go home. Love it. Are we planting, Rachel was asking, are we planting more trees than we lose each year? Is this part of Root Nashville's strategy?
That's where that 500,000 number came from, was restoring what's historically been lost over the last decade, keeping pace with what we are losing, and then getting us to be net above. The goal is for a certain percentage of canopy cover overall in order to be healthy. Yeah, good question.
Thanks so much. And then Michelle had a couple of questions about the maps that you were showing, Meg. She wanted to know if it was done with LiDAR, which I looked it up real quick, and you might know what it is, but I didn't. And do you track public and private trees on your map? And then also, do you do annual checks on trees, or how do you make sure that the date is, that the count is up to date? So a couple of questions about the map.
Who is this incredibly amazing, knowledgeable audience who's listening to this webinar? No softballs, but I'm ready. Let's get into it. So in terms of, LiDAR and where we're getting this information, Jennifer might be able to speak a little bit more to this, but there's a kind of tree canopy assessment that the city conducts, I believe, every either 3 to 5 years, one of those, I can't remember exactly, but it is LiDAR. There's flyover kind of cool technology that captures, I can't remember what LiDAR stands for either, but it's basically really detailed assessment of what trees you have, and it's conducted by planes taking most up-to-date imagery that we can. So the tree canopy information is from LiDAR, and it is what we have right now. We're about to get another assessment, so what we have right now is a little bit out of date. So we're going to be really curious to see where our canopy has gone in the last few years. Worried that it's not going to be any better than it was a few years ago, even though we've planted thousands and thousands of trees as a city. So more to come on that. And you're going to have to remind me of what those other questions were, if you don't mind, Christina.
Yeah, no problem. Before I do, I just want to say LiDAR means light detection and ranging. Duh. Just kidding, I had no idea. And then the other questions were, do you track public and private trees on the map? And that honestly was the only one you didn't get to.
Okay, good. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, the map includes public and private. So, even if you were to plant a tree in your own yard, that absolutely counts. I should mention that 94% of the actual land in Nashville is privately owned. So Metro, is a huge partner in Root Nashville. They've planted, last time I checked, it was over 30% of the trees so far for the city. And that's on just that 6% of land that's publicly owned. So these are places like parks, schools, the public right of way. So we should really be proud of Metro for really stepping up and contributing so many trees towards the goal. But 94% privately owned. Wow. So that means that if you, own your home and can make decisions about your own lawn, you are a steward of the environment. You are a part of that 94%, and what you do in your yard absolutely makes a difference. If you are renting or living in an apartment, don't have space to plant a tree in your own yard. If you have influence over a place like a school or a church or a business where you can drop a hint that they need to plant some trees or submit those ideas through Hub Nashville. I think I'm on a soapbox now and I don't even remember what the question was, but I hope that answered it.
You answered it, and I love the soapbox. Yes, we're all stewards for our community, and we should all be planting trees. Come join myself and Jen when we go plant our trees. And then one more question specifically for you, Meg, I believe. The iCreek tool looks really cool. Ryan was asking, what factors influence labeling a waterway as healthy or unhealthy?
Yeah, the short answer is many factors. And you can find everything listed when you actually go visit the iCreek tool. I will not speak specifically to those many different data pieces because I will speak out of turn, but I would encourage going to the website and looking at that. What else is pretty cool about it is that you can see if your waterway is impaired or unhealthy. You can see why and what data actually points to the reason why it is categorized as polluted. So short answer, lots of different factors. Go check it out is what I'll say in a nutshell.
Awesome. Wonderful. So we have a few more questions. Christy was asking the street kid trees, which was referenced in The Hidden Life of Trees by Wallabin, I believe his name, are at risk for family support, isolated from the many ways trees support each other. Is Root Nashville aware of those concerns and seeking ways for those trees to be in healthy environments as part of the World Wood Web? I like that question.
Jennifer or Meitra, does anybody else want to?
I didn't understand what you said at first.
I don't understand the question, so I think it's out of my league.
The question basically, I think, is asking when street trees are kind of standalone in their planting, they're kind of losing some of the benefits of having other trees nearby. Is that taken into consideration at all for planting?
Well, we have those standards that we mentioned earlier for street trees that, one tree. So let's say someone's house is the front of their yard is, say, 65 feet. You have to plant one tree every 30 feet thereof. So that would require 3 trees. Now, it is very helpful if you can build between the trees a trough so that they have more rooting areas. That's really important. You fight for every square foot of soil you can give that tree. And so if there's a trough built between them and the roots can grow down, let's say the sidewalk, under the sidewalk, and they will have more rooting area versus just a square box, if you will, a tree well. And so symbiotic, yes. And then there's other things that, there's a little microclimate that the trees create. And so being together, that would help create more of a cooling sense for the community.
Great. So it definitely is part of the planning. I love that. So Denise was asking, are there any resources that we can check out that someone can come and check out the trees on her property to see the health of them and provide guidance on how to increase the tree canopy and health in their yard?
So within Metro, the staff doesn't do that on private property. I look at trees in the right of way. We've got people at parks, etc. But the UT Extension Service is a group that does go out and work with individual private homeowners and could look at trees in that situation. Also, you can go to the International Society of Arboriculture, ISA. That's a group their site's called Trees Are Good. And they have a button you push, find an arborist, you put your zip code in and they'll pop up their certified arborist in your area.
Wonderful. That's great. And kind of similarly of kind of some help with our private homeowner kind of questions. We have a question. Is there a templated letter for us to send to homeowner associations to advocate for tree planting? Or maybe if there's no templated letter, perhaps some tips. And I think that was actually for Meitra, but if anybody else has there we go.
Sorry, my computer was about to die on me. I had to plug it in.
No worries.
I'm sure there are. Jennifer, I'm sure we've got resources that would say, hey, here's kind of for Meg. I know you've sent these letters out. So short answer, yes. If you talk to your beautification commissioner, we can get you sort of a standard template to send.
Wonderful. And I think that's kind of similar to a question that we got from Jennifer as well. So we'll just talk to our beautification commissioner. Wonderful. I don't think that I missed any questions. I apologize if I did. If I did, maybe put it again in the chat, but we are coming up on time. So Jen, I don't know if you wanted to maybe ask one or two of the other questions that you had, or if you want to just wrap it up.
I mean, I'll be honest, I think they all ended up getting answered. The big one that I had left over that I didn't ask, I think Rachel ended up asking in the chat, and covering it. So I think that was, this was just an incredible presentation. So much good information. Christina and I will definitely be planting a tree this year. I hope the rest of you that are on our audience, if you have not planted a tree, reach out to any of these folks to plant a tree and get it on it this year. And I think that's what we've got for today's show.
Then I will just say that trees.nashville.gov, there's a tree planting video that the Parks Horticulturist and I did, Randall Lance, talks about all the techniques. And there's, planting a tree, there's a few things you've got to get right. So look at that. It's really important to the future health of your tree.
That's a great point, and that we have gone over a ton of resources, I've realized today. So we'll be pulling from the chat, pulling from those resources. So it might be a minute before you get your follow-up email so we can collect all of that information, but you'll have that either today or tomorrow, a follow-up email that'll have a link to the recording for today, as well as all of these different resources that we have gone over, and all of our folks here as well, their contact information if you need it. And with that, I hope everyone has a really wonderful rest of their afternoon. Thank you all so much for being here today.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Go plant trees.